Tonight we are at the border, inside the processing facilities and on the front lines of the immigration crisis. This is Special Report. Good evening, I'm Brett Baer. Tonight, an up-close look at the immigration crisis that is rocking the country and the Obama administration. While the rhetoric out of Washington continues almost non-stop, you will get to see what's happening on the ground for yourself. Senior national correspondent John Roberts has this exclusive look at the human toll of a political firestorm.
It may be the first piece of good news in this crisis. According to the Border Patrol, daily apprehensions in the Rio Grande Valley are down from about 1,200 a day to 600 to 700, though no one is rushing to declare it a trend.
Approximately 500 agents here.
Fox News was granted exclusive access to the detention facility in McAllen, Texas. About 460 people there, down from a peak of 1,500. Still crowded, though, with 80 men jammed into one small holding area. Despite the reduced apprehensions, which may simply reflect a seasonal decline, the task to process the migrants, whether in person or by video link, remains enormous.
It was one group after another group, just one after another.
Texas Republican Congressman Louis Gohmert, who toured the border with us, rejects the president's plans for his $3.7 billion emergency funding request. Gohmert says what's needed is a plan to simply start sending people back.
Until we do that, they're going to keep flooding in here. As soon as we send them back and they realize, wow, we spent $5,000 and we've got nothing in return, that flood stops.
Though not the central focus of the president's emergency request, the White House today agreed that accelerated repatriation could put a big dent in the influx of illegal migrants.
We have sent a clear message to those parents who are contemplating whether or not they should send their kids on this dangerous journey. And articulating our commitment to enforcing the law should serve as an effective deterrent.
While the numbers may be down temporarily, there's every indication the exodus will continue. This group, including so-called family units and a couple of unaccompanied children, was apprehended late Saturday night. Maria Regulorio said she traveled 22 days from Guatemala because, quote, there are a lot of hardships because of the hunger, more hunger than you can imagine. Some days you eat one meal. Some days you don't eat at all, she told us. The next day, we found Maria and her son in the Border Patrol detention center. Unclear when she'll go back, if ever. The burden to taxpayers is mounting. Apprehension, detention, medical care, education for those who stay, even the American jobs they may one day take. Unless policies change, says the union representing Border Patrol agents, taxpayers will suffer too.
I don't think the American taxpayer can quite grasp of what's going on down here and how much of their tax dollars are being wasted with this problem.
Texas Democratic Congressman Henry Cuellar and Republican Senator John Cornyn will introduce legislation tomorrow to address the crisis. Among the things that the Humane Act recommends is to speed up repatriation of unaccompanied children. The Department of Homeland Security is also working to speed up removal of the so-called family units in pregnant women, though not as quickly as many members of Congress would like. Brett?
John Roberts on the border, live in Mission, Texas. John, thank you. Let's look at this situation from another perspective. Senior political analyst Brit Hume is here with some thoughts. Good evening, Brit.
Hi, Brett. The politicians and commentators talking tough about how to stop the current flow of illegal immigrant children across our southern border would do well to talk to some of these kids, as I did over the weekend. The first thing you realize is that they have come to America not so much out of attraction, but desperation. Their towns and neighborhoods in Central America are under the control of the most barbaric drug gangs. These kids tell of being ordered to join up or face beatings or even death. One boy I spoke to who resisted was badly beaten. Another saw his cousin shot to death. They tell of parents being extorted to pay the gangs under the threat of their children being murdered. They face similar horrors on the way here under the control of different but equally brutal gangs. One girl told me of watching a young father, unable to pay extra money demanded by the smugglers, being shot through the head before her eyes. Parts of his brain, she said, landed in her lap. Small wonder she was prepared to swim across the Rio Grande River to get into the U.S. Under current law, once these children set foot on U.S. soil, these juveniles from Central America are entitled to stay at least until a judge can hear their cases, and probably longer. So the first thing they want to do once they get across the border is get caught. because the law requires that once apprehended, they be cared for, at least until their hearings. That's why the flow of these kids is unlikely to stop unless and until the law is changed. Brett?
You talk to families along those border towns, and they feel helpless. They feel like this is a nonstop bombardment, and that if the National Guard or Border Patrol could be stepped up along that border, at least they would feel like more is being done there.
Well, perhaps they would feel that, but National Guard they can't even arrest anybody. So all they would be is a visible presence. When you think of Texas and Mexico, that's a 1,200-mile border. You would need to post a Border Patrol agent every few yards practically in order to stop the kids from actually crossing the border. And it would require a number of Border Patrol agents to do that one can hardly even imagine. So, you know, it's an interesting idea, and it sounds good when these politicians talk about it, but as a practical matter, when you're dealing with people who want to get caught, Border Patrol agents can only do so much, and they would have to be there in numbers we could hardly calculate.
And so for the fence proponents,
a 1,200-mile fence. I mean, hard to imagine that. In the middle we'd have to build it in the middle of the river, because if you get halfway across the river, you're in the U.S. in the parts of the border which is composed of the river. So there you go.
It's a complex problem.
It is.
Britt, thank you.
You bet.
The scandal-racked VA is still struggling to pay compensation to America's veterans, and when it does, checks are often processed for too much, resulting in millions in overpayments. Those are some of the allegations expected in another primetime hearing this evening. An assistant inspector general will testify about problems at one VA facility, including shredding and hiding mail, processing easy claims out of order, and ignoring thousands of electronic inquiries. Israel's defense minister says Hamas is trying everything it can to produce some kind of achievement. Their latest conflict has taken a new turn tonight. Correspondent John Huddy tells us the Palestinians have a new weapon in their arsenal.
Add another component to the fight. Hamas now says it has armed drones and released this video to back its claim. Today, the Israeli army says it shot down a Hamas drone circling above the Israeli city of Ashdod, just north of the Gaza Strip. If Hamas is using armed drones, that poses a new threat to Israel as the fighting enters into its 8th day. This, as Israel's prime minister describes the moral difference between the two fighting sides.
Here's the difference between us. We're using missile defense to protect our civilians, and they're using their civilians to protect their missiles.
So far, Hamas has fired over 1,000 rockets at Israel, leaving some damage and injuries. In Gaza, Israel has bombed more than 1,400 locations, leaving more than 170 Palestinians dead and more than 1,000 wounded. Today, the streets of Gaza City were nearly deserted, people fearing Israeli airstrikes. An estimated 90% of the stores are closed. Only food vendors and markets are open. On the border with Gaza, Israel ordered Palestinians to evacuate their homes. More than 17,000 residents have sought refuge in United Nations-run schools, now being used as shelters. What we're finding is people are very willing to talk to us about the situation on the ground here. They say they have nothing to do with Hamas. 26-year-old Mustafa Zayed and his 6-month-old daughter Zahir are also among the Palestinians seeking refuge in the shelters. Do you have any clothing? Were you able to bring anything here?
They asked us to leave the house immediately. We left everything behind. We had only like 15 minutes to leave. We left in a hurry.
And Mustafa is hoping he can go home soon. That may happen. The reason being, we're getting reports that Egypt is trying to broker a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas that, if agreed upon by both parties, would go into effect possibly as soon as 9 a.m. local time. That's 2 a.m. Eastern. And then at that point, both sides would meet in Cairo to go over the terms of a longer-term ceasefire agreement. So now we're going into day 8 of the fighting, and perhaps at this point, Brett, we may be seeing the fighting coming at least temporarily to a halt. Brett?
Let's hope. John Huddy live in Gaza City early Tuesday morning. John, thank you. We'll follow that late-breaking development. The country's top diplomat is concentrating tonight on another Middle East powder keg, Iran. Chief White House correspondent Ed Henry on efforts to salvage negotiations over that country's nuclear future.
With just 6 days to go before a July 20th deadline to forge a deal, Secretary of State John Kerry met in Vienna today with Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Zarif. While there are signs Iran is showing some flexibility by offering a very modest reduction in nuclear enrichment, U.S. officials have suggested Tehran's moves have so far been unworkable.
Secretary Kerry, are you making any progress? No.
Yet as President Obama faces a series of national security crises around the world, upbeat White House officials appear eager to prop up a potential deal.
And to its credit, Iran has defied the expectations of some by actually fulfilling the obligations under the Joint Plan of Action.
On Sunday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu scoffed at the idea of progress in the talks, and he laughed off a claim by Iran's foreign minister that his nuclear program is for peaceful purposes.
I think what we have said should give confidence to people that we're not looking for nuclear weapons.
It's a joke. Of course they're developing nuclear weapons. They've invested not billions. You can start counting it in maybe in hundreds of billions of dollars. For what? For creating medical isotopes for Iranian patients circling the Earth?
Kerry has left the door open to extending the deadline if the talks fail. Such a move could spark fellow Democrats, like Senate Foreign Relations Chairman Bob Menendez, to push forward with new sanctions on Iran that the president demanded he hold back on. That tension coming as the president appears to be on defense over instability from Syria to Ukraine. The Wall Street Journal today declaring, quote, U.S. global power seems increasingly tenuous.
How does the White House react to the notion that the president is a bystander to all these crises?
I think that there have been a number of situations in which you've seen this administration intervene in a meaningful way that has substantially furthered American interests and substantially improved the tranquility of the global community.
Now, the world may not seem tranquil, though Ernest noted the president was able to get Syria to turn over its chemical weapons. Prime Minister Netanyahu turned that around by saying if Syria can't keep its chemicals, why would Iran be able to keep its nuclear materials? Brett?
Ed Henry live on the North Lawn. Ed, thank you. Up next, a return to service for Sergeant Bo Bergdahl, accused of being a deserter. First, here's what some of our Fox affiliates across the country are covering tonight. Fox 8 in Cleveland with a $92 million fine for Pilot Flying J truck stops for cheating customers out of promised rebates and discounts. The company is owned by Tennessee Republican Governor Bill Haslam and his brother, Cleveland Browns owner Jimmy Haslam. Fox 29 in Philadelphia with about 150 suburban residents being allowed back into their homes after a mysterious odor forced them out overnight. Officials are still waiting for lab results to identify the substance responsible. Some people were taken to hospitals as a precaution. And this is a live look at Dallas from Fox 4, our affiliate there. They're covering a partial knee replacement for George W. Bush. This time it was his left one. The former president had a partial replacement for his right knee in late May. Spokesman says former President Bush is looking forward to getting back on his mountain bike in a few weeks. That's tonight's live look outside the Beltway from Special Report. We'll be right back.